Welcome to another edition of the Giants Huddle podcast, brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the New York Football Giants. I am John Schmeelk. Today's guest, we're going to be joined by Jason Candle, the head coach of the Toledo Rockets, who coached Darius Alexander, the Giants' third-round pick number 65 throughout his career in college. Thank you for being with us today from the Hackensack Meridian Health podcast studio. Keep getting better. Without further ado, let's welcome on our guest. We bring in Jason Candle, head coach of the Toledo Rockets. And without further ado, let's welcome in our guest. He is the head coach of the Toledo Rockets. He's been their head coach since 2016. Jason Candle. Coach, thanks for being with us today. How are you?
Good morning. Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
No, thanks for being with us. We're very excited to have Darius up here. Loved him as a prospect coming out. Now, you've been with the program since 2009, if I'm not mistaken, correct? As an assistant too?
That's correct.
All right, and Darius was there from 2019 to 2024. You had him for 6 years. What was it like coaching him for that 6-year span?
Well, I think anytime a young player comes into your program, you're looking for incremental growth in his process as a human being first and foremost, and then a really strong commitment to what the academic part of it can look like, and then obviously what we're all here for, to try to make young men become the best football player they possibly can be. So his process was progressive. What we got as a freshman is certainly not what the New York Giants have received here in the last couple weekends. But I think his approach is really authentic. His process was really, really good, and at times faster than others. But I think, like I said, I think the best word I could use is authentic, and has put him in a really good place right now.
All right, so let's touch on that. Where do you think he made the biggest stride since he got into your program to when he got here?
Well, I mean, I think that an 18-year-old person, we all live that, right? We're all very influential age. We're trying to figure things out. There's external variables that may take us down a path that or could give you the temptation to take you down a path that isn't where you want to go. And every young person in the world goes through that. So being a Division I college football player, there's more of those than maybe the average college student has available to them. So him, just like every person that goes to play college football, you got to figure out what it is and where you want to go. And I thought from the day he arrived on campus, he always had a pretty dialed in approach of what it should look like and where it was going to be. And he just played his best football in his last year. So like I said, it progressively got better from an authentic approach.
You talk about a guy being authentic and being given the opportunity to take different paths. Every year in the draft, you find more and more kids. They've been to 2 schools, they've been to 3 schools, they've been to 4 schools. It's not often that, especially in a conference like the MAC, you can keep a player of that caliber for so many years. So why were you able to hold on to him, and why did he stick with you for that long?
Well, I mean, I think that, we had a clear picture a year before of what it could look like, if a guy stayed true to what it is. I mean, obviously Giants fans don't want to hear about me talking about the Eagles, but Quinyon Mitchell, being able to do the same thing and go through that process and become a first round pick, I think gave him a clear picture right in his face of what this is and what it could be if he could just continue to progress. And credit to his loyalty to his teammates first and foremost, and then this coaching staff and into this institution for what he wanted to become. And young people all the time, you talk about temptation, my oh my, like it's all over the place. And there's not only temptation, there's inducement, there's tampering, there's prying, there's trying to get you to go make a move, there's trying to get you to go take a path that maybe isn't as true to what you said you were going to be when you first arrived. So I give this guy a lot of credit for sticking to what he said he was going to do and be the best version of himself. And him and his family have benefited tremendously from that decision.
You mentioned, yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the Eagles. I'll make Giant fans angry. I'll mention the Cowboys. Savon Ravel, someone they drafted, another guy that if he didn't get hurt this year, he could have been a first-round pick, and he stuck it out too. So you're right. If you stick it out and you play well, people are going to find you, Coach. Like, you don't have to be on TV every Saturday. If you can play, these scouts will find you.
Well, I think, I came from Division III Mount Union, where we had Cecil Shorts drafted in the 4th round and Pierre Garçon drafted in the 6th round. So, as a young assistant coach, I mean, right there in your face, man, oh man, if you're good enough, they're going to find you. And I think that's true all across the board. I mean, I do this for a living, and sometimes there's people getting drafted from schools that, man, I got to pick up my phone and Google where that is. So this is a very extensive process where a lot of decisions are made to represent, multi-million-dollar organizations, and more times than not, they get it right.
Yeah, and I think making a decision like he did to stay, I think is the sign that he's a pretty mature young man. When he was up here to visit shortly after the draft, he brought his son up here with him, who he's raising, and just seeing him interact with him and seeing him around. My understanding is that his son was no stranger to your facility as well when he was at Toledo. Just talk about his growth as a man, trying to raise his son, and just kind of the maturity he has coming into the league when he's going to turn 25 this summer.
Yeah, that little guy's got more free muscle milks than anybody in the history of football. And a welcomed addition to our summer workouts last year. So, I think that I think the job of college football coaches is to make sure that we can help paint a path for what success looks like for young people. And we're all, a lot of us, myself included, are young fathers too, and
Me too.
my oh my, to watch this guy go through this process and really be involved there and having him around all summer last year, it's not disruptive to what the work that this young man put in on the football field. And certainly we didn't want to be, disruptive to what the main thing is here and is to for him to be a really good dad. So I know that's something that's very important to him. I know that's something that'll be very important to him through his journey as a pro player here. And really proud of him for stepping up to the plate, on the things that really, really matter like that.
The Giants Huddle podcast is brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. Whether it's game day celebrations or your everyday financial needs, Big Blue fans can get the most out of every moment with Citizens. To learn more, go to citizensbank.com/Giants.
Huddle up, get in here. If you're lined up here, you gotta go over the middle with it to score.
Right. How do we make that happen?
I don't know.
But Citizens does.
Make sense of your money with Citizens, official bank of Eli Manning.
All right, let's focus on him as a football player, Coach. You talked about kind of how he steadily improved over the course of his time there. I know you weren't in the meetings with him necessarily on the defensive side of the ball, but what kind of learner was he? Some guys learn better on the board. Some guys learn better when they get out on the field. Some guys need to take a lot of notes. How did he learn and kind of absorb everything you guys are trying to teach him about your defense and about the way you want to play?
Well, he listens, and a lot of guys say yes, sir, as a mask to, hoping you don't ask him another question. When this guy says yes, sir, he's dialed in. He hears what you're saying to him, and he's ready to go apply. What he's learned. I think that I played him at offensive tackle when he was a true freshman. And
Wow.
told him kind of, hey, look, man, like you figure this out, you'll be a first round pick at left tackle. And there were some times there where he came in a little heavy as a freshman and. You want to play defensive line, you got to get your weight under control and you got to get a training program. And this is not anything that, paints the picture of a lazy person because this is far from it. Just not from a great, ready-made, player coming out of high school like some guys are. So a maturation process there where he had to learn a lot of things, you know what I mean? Just how to take care of himself, how to eat right, how to do the correct things away from the football field to continue to be the best player he could possibly be on the football field. But man, oh man, get him in between those lines and then out on that grass. I mean, what a talent, and certainly, like I said, a guy that can really take the meeting room and apply it to the football field.
Now, you mentioned you played him at a little offensive tackle early in his career. I didn't know that. When we see him, at least when I watched him on tape, I kind of just see, all right, classic 305-pound, long, classic NFL 3 technique.
Yeah.
But I know sometimes the coaches that have him in college think, all right, maybe not quite that. Or do you think that is exactly what he is?
I think that's exactly what he is. And I think that, obviously the Giants drafted him for a schematic fit. You know what I mean? We're a little bit different here. We don't get to go. We're not at a place where we get to go just pick our players and, we don't get the pick of the litter of the 6'5", 310, 312-pound
Right.
3 techniques. But, I think he's got great position flexibility. You know what I mean? He could play in the face of the tight end and big people personnel. I mean, I think some teams recruited him or scouted him as potentially a zero nose in their scheme. He's just a big, massive guy that bends really, really well. And I still think his best football is he's just scratching the surface on what he can be. So I think it's going to be fun to watch how they use him and fun to watch how they integrate him into the scheme. And, it sounds like there's a really strong culture in that defensive front in that meeting room. And I think this is an environment that's been created. This guy's going to thrive and have a great year.
It's funny I mentioned he's an older prospect, right? He was with you for a long time at Toledo. But I think, to your point, Coach, there does still seem to be a lot of room to grow here to kind of turn those physical tools and translate them into being a better football player. So what's the next step for him, in your opinion, the things that he needs to hone in on, focus on, really get the details locked in to take that next step as he now plays in the NFL?
Well, I mean, I think sometimes change can be intimidating, right? You know what I mean? This is the next thing. I'm a high school senior. I'm going to college. It's not like going to the 13th grade. This is not like your sixth year, seventh year in college football. You know what I mean? This is change. But it's inevitable, and how you react and how you adapt to that is ultimately going to define what your success is. And this guy's, we've had a lot of he's had a lot of adversities through his career here at Toledo. We've had really good defensive fronts and really good defensive linemen. The guy that played ahead of him was drafted also. So I think that he's been in a room where there are really talented players. And I think that he's had to be the best version of himself to continue to compete. And I think that's what's going to be required for him, just like all the other rookies in your entire league. But I'm very confident this guy's he's gonna mesh, fit in well, and really take great coaching and really take the culture of that locker room, and specifically that defensive line room, and apply it to allow him to go out and be as competitive as he possibly can.
I'm sure every time you played somebody the last couple of years, he was the guy they circled in a red Sharpie marker right before the game and said, we need to slow that guy down. How did he handle seeing all that extra attention, the double team? Some guys can get frustrated, right? They never get those one-on-one opportunities. How did he handle being really the focus of the offensive game plans in terms of trying to slow down your pass rush?
Well, I think there's the key thing there. You know what I mean? As a young defensive player, oh man, I'm going to have 15 sacks this year. I'm going to lead the conference in sacks. I'm going to lead the country in sacks. And him just really understanding, as a young player, and really, I thought this showed up a lot on videotape this year, just earning the right to rush the quarterback and really becoming a really dominant run defender, because his ability to play low and play through double teams and to, really be disruptive on every single football play rather than just third and long. I think that put him in position to be, a New York Giant.
What do you think his go-to trait is, coach? Is it his length? Is it his ability to get upfield? Is it his power? If you were to circle one thing that's kind of the basis that everything that he works his counters off of, that is his best trait that really makes him who he is, what would it be?
Well, he's very fluid and very athletic, and the guys that are usually like that, they don't have the body that he has, and they don't pack the punch that he has as well. So I think there's a unique characteristic that way. And like I said, just really looking forward to seeing him integrate himself in the culture of that team, and watching those coaches tap into him and getting the most out of him. And I think we're all going to be what we think he can be once that happens.
Did you have any doubt, and the Giants have talked about how important this was for their evaluation, that when he showed up in Mobile for the Senior Bowl, that he would do as well as he did against all those Power 5 offensive linemen?
Well, I went to practice because I figured it was going to be quite a show.
And it was, Coach. I was there
yeah.
too. I was right there on the field. It was awesome.
And it was, and I think that, our guys welcome that challenge. We've had credit Jim Nagy and his staff. I mean, my gosh, like, we've had a lot of guys go to that game and play really, really well. And 2 years ago, I mean, we mentioned Quinyon Mitchell. That guy moved up the draft boards really fast. Obviously the Senior Bowl helps with that process. It's part of it. And Darius was no different, this year. And I think that, there's a long, extensive process in this scouting, as you know, and you want to touch every point, and you want to do every point to the best of your ability. And, the guys that do that, they're picked in the top 70 picks of the draft, and the guys that don't, they're probably not. So, credit to both of those kids for doing that, and to, putting their abilities on display and on the biggest stage.
Yeah, Coach, I'll be honest with you. I don't know how he got to 65. I thought he was a shoe-in top 50 player this year. When you saw him kind of, get through that second round, were you just on pins and needles like, what are teams waiting for here? This guy needs to come off the board?
Well, I mean, I think we've been through it here with guys in the past. I mean, Kareem Hunt was a third-round pick out of here and led the NFL in rushing as a rookie. So, I think that it's beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? You know what I mean? There's not any different than college recruiting. I'm going through the same thing each and every day with conversations with staff members. And, I think sometimes people get very confused in the draft on what it really is. I mean, it's really what teams need. It's not really what they think who's good and who's not. It's what their needs are and how they can articulate and match and create a fit for what the needs are. And there's multiple ways of doing that. And there's multiple ways of doing that in college football now. So, I mean, yeah, I think that he slid maybe a little bit farther than maybe what I would have thought of after watching the Senior Bowl and that process and what he did at the Combine. But Yeah, like I said, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. He ends up in a really, really good place. I think it's a really good fit where he's at, and really in a month or so, once they get to OTAs and out on that football field, and you're a pro football player, you still got to go make the team anyway. So no one really gives a damn where you were drafted. So I think he'll do a good job of putting the past in the past and really focus on producing in the present.
If you want to know how to manage 2 minutes of crunch time football, I'm your man. But if you're wondering about a long-term financial plan, you should talk to Citizens. Hey, I can also talk lawn care.
I'd like to learn about a mowing routine.
Yes, I knew I could help. Make sense of your money with Citizens.
Yeah, and the Giants are excited to have him. Just a couple more, Coach, real quick. You mentioned you think he has a 3-technique future in the NFL, but in your scheme, you moved him around a lot. Where did you use him primarily? Where do you think he was most effective in your scheme?
Well, I mean, any good coordinator is going to try to put your best player on the other team's worst player. So, for us, that was always the challenge. In passing situations. In college football, it's a little bit different because there's so much tempo and so much pace, and you can't just be a specialized guy that stands over there on the sideline, because good offensive coordinators will find a way to keep you on the sideline by playing fast. So, him being able to be a 3-down player for us and be able to have some position flexibility and move him around a little bit, I thought was huge. But you hit it. I mean, he's a true 3 technique where he can, get on the edge of a guard in passing situations, and he's big enough and strong enough and athletic enough to fight and hold the point there in the double teams in the run game. So, yeah, like I said, he's scratching the surface, I think, and I think it's going to be a really good thing for him and for the Giants.
All right, tell me about him as a guy. Like, how did he lead? As one of the veterans on your team last year, I'm sure, he was a guy that took a big leadership mantle on his shoulders. What was his leadership style? Is he a rah-rah guy? Is he a lead by example guy? How did he help lead your team?
I think leadership is defined, you ask 100 coaches, they're going to define it 100 different ways. But I think for me, it's like, or do you have the ability to lead yourself in a positive manner each and every day? And if you're a really good player like he is, and you can do that correctly, your sphere of influence is going to be felt, and your impact is going to be felt through that entire locker room each and every time you put your cleats on and you go out on the field. So I think, first of all, he's got a great personality. I think, second of all, he's very personable with his teammates. I think, third, he works really hard, and he's talented. So, I get it. Everybody in the NFL is talented. I'm pretty sure the Giants are not asking him to come in as a rookie and be a team captain here. They probably want him to come in and be the best version of him each and every day, so he can make an impact, and his presence can be felt on the practice field, and hopefully, on game day as well. And I don't think that's any different than what we asked him to do here at Toledo, or any of our other really good players. So sometimes there's the butterflies in your stomach as a young player, as a freshman, or man, oh man, I see something that's wrong, and I don't feel like I've done enough to say anything. As a senior, those butterflies turn into, man, that pressure is, I should say something because I've been there and I've done that. And you saw some moments out of him, when he was here that way. But I think the most consistent thing was just who he was each and every day.
All right, then final question, Coach. Any anecdotes, stories, things that you had a personal experience with him, just to kind of explain to Giant fans what they're getting in Darius as a guy, as a dude that is going to represent your program well and represent the Giants well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that family is really important to him, and I think he feels a tremendous amount of responsibility to represent his family in a first-class manner. And once a guy's grasped that, then representing Toledo or representing the New York Giants, I think that becomes an easy thing because guys really own their behaviors, and he does that. So I think that for me, the conversations were always real. They were always authentic. He's a guy that will tell you what's on his mind. He'll ask the right questions. He'll learn. And he'll be respectful of a great learning process if there is a great teaching process. And it seems to me like there is a great teaching process in place for him. And as I mentioned before, I think this is going to be a great fit, and this guy's gonna make all of us proud.
Folks, anything you want to tell the folks about your program, Coach, about you, anything you have going on right now that you want them to know about, the floor is yours.
No, we're just happy the New York Giants got a rocket, or another one. We got Deontay Johnson, the linebacker, up there as well. And Tay was a great representation of us, and, first-class kid, and I thought was really coming on in the preseason last year until he had his injury. So I'm looking for big things out of both of these young men. And, obviously, we've put a lot of guys out, in the NFL since our staff has been here. Darius was draft pick number 11 since our staff got here when I became the head coach here, and we got some more coming next year. So keep an eye on the Rockets, and I think some big things on the horizon here for us. And very proud of our graduates and proud of what our program has done and where we think it's going to go.
Coach, you're right. Deontay he was going to, really push for playing time last offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Since I have you, just tell the Giant fans what they could have in Deontay Johnson now that he's healthy. And by the way, that guy's built like a tank. If people watch him walking around, that guy is just solid as a rock. What Giant fans might have with him if he manages to fight his way onto the field for some more defensive and special team snaps.
Well, I mean, he's not going to screw it up. I mean, that guy's got a, mechanical engineering degree from here and, very smart, very cerebral person, humble worker, and I think that's one thing that I think, we pride ourselves on here is, we don't care where we were drafted or, if we were drafted, we just want the opportunity and we want to have the opportunity to stick. And I think you probably see that, being very close to the program there. You see that from Tay and see, how he goes about himself and carries himself each and every day. And another guy that wants to represent his family in a first-class manner. And Toledo has benefited greatly from that. So really excited for him, really excited for what I think it can be because, once that guy continues to learn what to do and how to do it, he's just going to get better and better and better and a very, very accountable, reliable person and player. So Giants fans should be excited about him and what the future looks like.
Head coach of the Toledo Rockets. He is head coach Jason Candle. Coach, thanks so much for the time. Best of luck on recruiting. Get back on that trail and good luck in 2025.
Thank you so much. Go Rockets.
That's Toledo head coach Jason Candle. Awesome stuff. We really thank him for joining us. Really good stuff on Darius Alexander, who I'm, again, really excited. I think the Giants got a steal of 65. Very excited to see him on the field with the Giants this year. I think he can do a lot at 6'5" with those long arms and athleticism. I think he's had a bright future ahead of him, and it's great to learn a little bit more about him from someone that spent 6 years with him at Toledo. Thanks for being with us here from the Hackensack Meridian Hill podcast studio. Keep getting better. I'm John Schmeelk. Stay tuned to the Giants Huddle podcast, brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants, for continuing coverage of the Giants rookie class, OTAs, minicamp, offseason, all that, as we gear up and get ready for the Giants 2025 season. For Jason Candle, I'm John Schmeelk. Thanks so much for being with us today on the Giants Huddle podcast. We'll see you next time, everybody.